Today I'm walking down the streets of New Concord, Ohio on the easternmost edge of Muskingum County. Many know this village of about 2,000 people for a few things. It's the home of my alma mater Muskingum University and the delicious Dairy Duchess. It's also the home of decorated fighter pilot, astronaut, and U.S. Senator John Glenn and his wife, Annie. His childhood home stands on Main Street and is now the John and Annie Glenn Museum. So join me on this tour as we look at one of the museums of Muskingum. I'm standing here at the John and Annie Glenn Museum with Hope Neal, Director of Operations for the Museum Association of East Muskingum. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Thank you for having us here. Before we get into the history of John and Annie Glenn, I understand that the museum itself, John's boyhood home, has had its own kind of journey. It wasn't always on Main Street, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not only did we move it in 2001 to get it here, make it a little more accessible to be a museum, especially for people from out of town, but his dad ended up moving it in the 40s due to some circumstances revolving the National Room.
So it's moved a couple of times before it moved here. And tell us a little bit about what we're standing in front of now.
Yeah, so this originally had its home at Muskingum University, but when we opened it, got donated to us. It is a 1/3 scale of the Friendship 7, which is John's capsule. Now, if you go to the Air and Space Museum in the Smithsonian, typically it's sitting right inside the door and it only sits about yay tall. It's really not a big capsule. To be a Mercury astronaut, you had to be above 5'7" and under 6 foot. And so John was 5'11". He just barely squeaked in there. And when he was in the capsule, he had his knees to his chest for the entirety of the flight. So he was really jam-packed in there. Oftentimes, when we show people around, they always ask us about this big orange thing here. In the most simplistic terms, this is a fail-safe. So all the Mercury 7 astronauts, they're the group of astronauts that train with John. They're the first 6 American astronauts. They have this on their capsule when they go to take off. And the thought is, if something goes wrong when they're trying to accelerate and get into our atmosphere, this has some rockets up top that'll turn on that will hopefully jettison it away from whatever explosion it might be leaving behind and make it a little safer for it to come back down. Luckily for all the Mercury 7 astronauts, it was never used.
It's good to know.
Because in all the tests, it did not do very well. So it was more of an emotional fail-safe. You got to keep in mind in all of this, we've never ever done any of it before. So the more comfortable they can make people feel about it, the better. So when it comes to him having his knees to his chest, like I said before, his flight is about 5 hours in total. And it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. At multiple points he notes that he's a little hot in the whole overrunning of things. So once he splashes down the Atlantic, they're able, using a helicopter, to pull him out of the sea and get him onto a ship. One of the first things he does is he changes clothing, and we are fortunate enough, even though the Smithsonian gets the really, really cool outfit, we get the outfit that he changed into afterwards. And he did get to choose his footwear. So it looks like he has a pair of Chuck Taylors or Converse. Unfortunately, for those brands who I think would love the free promotion, he was raised by his mom, who went through the Great Depression and World War II rationing, so he wasn't going to be spending a whole bunch of money on any of that. So he got an off-brand pair, and then even with that, NASA didn't want to give free promotion to anybody, and so they actually paid someone to hand paint the NASA logo over top the off-brand logo on his shoes. So there's one really famous photo of him like kicking his feet up afterwards. He looks all relaxed and very proud of himself, and you can see that it's the NASA logo on his shoes. It's not actually whatever off-brand he was wearing.
Very interesting. Tell us a little bit about the Muskingum College connections for John and Annie.
Yeah, so John and Annie are both local, very, very local. John moves into town when he's about 2 years old. Annie moves into town when she's very, very young. And their families become staples in the town. John's dad is the plumber and the local Chevrolet dealer. Annie's dad is the local dentist. And so they get really well established. And so, of course, when they're choosing colleges, it's a no-brainer for either of them they're going to go to Muskingum. And Muskingum at the time, when Annie was attending, you were allowed to be a woman studying there, but you had to be a secretarial or education major. Those were your only options. And Annie, she inherited a really severe stutter from her father, but she was an amazing musician. So what she does is she goes into music education, and with her father's nudging, because he doesn't think she's going to make the best teacher in the world, just due to the stuttering, he doesn't think the children will pay attention to her. He pushes her to take a bunch of business classes. So nowadays, if we look back at her transcript, she'd probably be pretty close to actually a business major. And then once she graduates, she stays and works in the registrar's office at Muskingum, so she actually uses that knowledge. John, on the other hand, he was a chemistry major. He had renters here in the house that one of them had a boyfriend that was a chemistry major and let him sort of tag along and do some experiments, so that's what got him excited about it. At his time in Muskingum, he also got a free physics, or not free, he got a physics credit from going to the New Philadelphia airport and getting his own pilot's license. And so he gets his start in aviation there through Muskingum, but he actually doesn't finish that degree. He leaves when Pearl Harbor occurs his junior year.
And I understand we have some New Concord, Muskingum County specific history tied right over there.
Yeah, so not only did we have a meteorite fall in the 1800s called the New Concord meteorite, we also, of course, sent John into space. We managed to send all of the face shields for the Mercury 7 astronauts from New Concord into space. There was a company called Fabriform that sat out on 83, and it was just only in town for about 10 years. Just happened to be the sweet spot where it made all of those big face shields. So when you think about an astronaut, you think this big black screen in front of their face. That's what I'm talking about. They made all of those for the Mercury 7 astronauts.
That's amazing. And is that one in particular specific to any mission or any?
No, I don't believe so. When we were first founded, we asked the community to come together and give us anything that anybody had. And luckily, the president of Fabriform at the time, I believe, was on our founding board. And so he was able to give us that as a demonstration piece. I don't think that was attached. I don't think NASA would have let us have it, honestly.
Yeah. So high profile piece. Okay.
Yeah.
Coming up on Museums of Muskingum, we'll take a look at a gallery that showcases John Glenn's decorated fighter pilot past and the military history surrounding it. All that and more when we come back. Welcome back to Museums of Muskingum. I'm in New Concord at the John and Annie Glenn Museum being shown around by Hope Neal. Without further ado, let's get back to the tour. So we're standing here in the West Gallery, and it kind of looks like a war room. Tell us a little bit about what we have on display.
Yeah, so this is what I like to tell people is the pre-flight room. It's everything that made John who he was before the space race, before all of the NASA things came involved. And that deals a lot with the local area, New Concord, Muskingum County, and his family. So John comes from a long line of military men. That gentleman right beside you there, that is John Herschel Glenn Sr., so that is John's dad. The family just called him Herschel. And everything in this chest is from his time in World War I, including the hand-sewn Blue Star flag that John's mother made for him. Now, Herschel is a big inspiration to John for entering the military. Unfortunately for John, he did keep a war diary, and some of the stories that John recounts really excitedly in his life are maybe not the truest version that have come around. But of course, his dad is not going to tell him that he lost his hearing during a training drill during boot camp. He's going to tell him a Jeep exploded over on the front lines. And so we can't really fault John for spreading a little bit of misinformation. Of course, John believes everything, but his dad wasn't a big proponent of John going into the military, at least not initially. His dad only got an 8th grade education. He was a farm boy and needed to go help with his family and the finances. Well, when John gets into school, his dad then goes and he becomes president of the school board. And he really, really emphasizes education. John's mom is a teacher, so he's grown up with the idea of you're absolutely going into college. But John's dad's hope was just sort of that he would take over the plumbing company. He didn't have these big military dreams for his son, but like a lot of gentlemen that were attending Muskingum University at the time, Pearl Harbor occurs, and John thinks, this is my time. He got his private pilot's license that he was able to do through Muskingum to get a physics credit, and in doing that, when he hears about the attack on Pearl Harbor, he decides, you know what, I have valuable skills that could be used in the military, so I'm gonna go sign up. And the first thing he does is he runs to Zanesville. He goes to the Army recruiter, because we did not have an Air Force at the time. We had an Army Air Corps. And the Army recruiter says, okay, I'll take you, but I'll get back to you in a little while. And about 2 months go by before John gets antsy. And he decides, you know what, they're not moving fast enough. So he runs over to the post office at Cambridge, that is now the John Glenn Post Office, and he signs up with the Navy recruiter, who takes him pretty quickly. So that decision is just sort of happenstance. Later on in his military career, at the time, if you were high enough in the Navy, you were able to have a choice to enter the Marines, and John hears their honor code, and that makes the decision for him. So he does actively choose to be in the Marines, whereas the Navy was sort of an offhanded thing that happened to him. And then, of course, he goes on, and he's actually a strange individual. He's able to say, because he's loaned out between all of the branches, that he has served in every branch of the US military except for the Coast Guard and the Space Force. Granted, I think he qualified. So he's really unique in that way. In his time in the military, he goes on to fight in World War II in the Pacific. And then, of course, he goes into Korea, and that's sort of his claim to fame. He's a fighter pilot. There's a picture right here of him with his plane that they so lovingly called Swiss cheese because it had so many holes in it. And he was always a little bit of a daredevil, so it's not a shocker that he then goes on to be a test pilot, and he undertakes Operation Bullet, where he breaks the speed record for flying across the US as quickly as possible. He also breaks the sound barrier as he does that, and he flies basically directly over New Concord. Luckily enough, he had the wherewithal to tell his mom that there might be a sonic boom that occurs, because she gets to field phone calls from all the neighbors thinking that he dropped a bomb nearby. So he does a great deal in the military before he even thinks about entering into space.
And kind of talking to his military experience in general, I understand he was quite a decorated pilot. Like, he has a list of accomplishments aside from that speed record.
Oh my goodness, yes. He has multiple distinguished flying crosses. Like I said, he was very reliable. He was a daredevil, so he wasn't afraid to go into the fight, but he also very much believed in helping his brothers, and that he wouldn't leave anyone behind. So he goes into that danger to save people on multiple occasions. He also has some fun external ties, like his partner at one point is Ted Williams, the baseball player, and so he has all of these experiences, and it's only when NASA starts sort of to formulate and they start to talk about maybe going into space that his mindset shifts away from the military. He does have a really unique pin, so you can see it on that green uniform there. It is the one standing on its own. If you ever see that at a farmer's market or at a yard sale, grab it, because those were only given to the 6 Mercury 7 astronauts who actually went into space. And there's only 2 that we know where they're at. So it's extremely rare part of space history. If you're able to find one, again, give me a call. Or maybe give NASA a call. That's probably the more appropriate one.
Absolutely. And are all 3 of these off to my right here, are these all John Glenn's? Or?
Yes. So these are all his uniforms. They're all Marine uniforms. The blue is his dress mess, so the dressier occasions. The white one is one you're not going to see in every Marine's closet. That is what he presented in front of Congress in, had dinners with the president in. It's the really fancy one, and then of course the green one is his everyday. We do have one more uniform that you'll see in the Annie Gallery. It's his blues that he got married in.
Fantastic. And then I think the last thing I want to touch on here in this room is the Blue Star. Tell us a little bit about the Blue Star, how that all works.
Yeah, so during World War II, we had quite a large amount of people fighting in the war. And you wanted to make sure that everyone in your community was updated on them, like most of our neighbors nowadays. They're gonna care if your son is away at war, or your daughter. And so what moms would do is they would sew or they would buy a star flag. And so the blue star is what you wanted to see. It meant that they were A-okay, they were just actively serving. If you had multiple people serving from your household, you might see 3 or 4 stars for each person. The silver star meant that they were injured or missing in action, and then the gold star could also mean they were missing in action, but it can also mean that they passed away. It sort of just depends on how the family sees missing in action, on how they would present that one. Luckily for John, he only ever had a blue star, his dad only ever had a blue star. The one behind you there is his father-in-law's, that he only ever had a blue star, but there were a ton of his classmates that went overseas that were not so fortunate either.
Here's a fun trivia question for you. How many times did John Glenn orbit the Earth during his iconic mission? We'll find out the answer when we come back on Museums of Muskingum. So we're standing here in the East Gallery, and this is very much the room that's commemorating the biggest milestone in his life, at least by some people's measure.
Yeah, by John's measure, his biggest milestone is probably marrying Annie, maybe the birth of his kids. No, but you're right. So this is what I like to call our post-flight room. Sometimes I'll say the memorabilia room because it has a lot of things tied to his flight and afterwards, such as our wonderful hand-painted sign that used to sit outside of town here. We know it was painted after he went into orbit because the date down at the bottom, February 20th, 1962, is accurate, and it's not painted over 4 times. So he ends up postponing his flight. He does it 3 times due to weather, and 1 time just because he's not feeling super confident that day. And there's a whole story I'll tell you in the Annie Gallery about Lyndon B. Johnson and his handling of that situation. But no one was really happy about it being postponed. It was our chance to catch up to the Soviets in the space race, and so there was a lot of Americans that had their hearts set on this, and each time it postponed, even though it was out of his control, it was just a little bit of a disappointment to everybody. But John, he goes. He is our first American astronaut to orbit the Earth. He does it 3 times. He has only ever intended to do it 3 times. There's a really prolific myth that he was supposed to go 7 times. And it has a really, honestly, genuinely good basis where we have all of the radioing between ground control and John. And when he gets into orbit, ground control says, "You're go for 7." So, like, that's really understandable. What that meant was, if he was orbiting and he turned on the retro rockets, which were these rockets meant to slow him down enough that he would fall back to Earth, if they did not work, then he would naturally orbit 7 times before falling down. But you can see how that being taken out of context means that even NASA was wrong about that for a little while. And everything from John's point of view goes perfectly fine. He has a great time. The one thing that is strange to him is that when he gets up there, he's about to re-enter the atmosphere, and he turns on those retro rockets. The intended purpose was for them to turn on, and once they were done, fall off the capsule. And ground control just radios him and says, "Hey, you should keep those on." And that's basically the biggest change that happens in his mind. Now, ground control have him keep it on because there's an indicator light that goes off that says there's a problem with the heat shield on the capsule. If you go to re-enter our atmosphere, there is a lot of friction between the capsule and the air, and it's going to burst into flames. One thing about that, the radio signal's not going to come through, so there's going to be a little bit of radio silence. And 2, that heat shield's there to make sure that he's safe. So it's a really important bit of his capsule to have an issue. So ground control decides, you know what, we're gonna tell him to keep it on there in hopes that if it's coming loose, it'll like squish it, it'll keep it in place. And then they also decide they're not gonna tell anybody. So they don't tell the American public, they don't tell his family. Actually what happens is Alan Shepard, who is the one Mercury 7 astronaut that goes up into space before John, he decides, you know what, I got nothing to lose, I'm gonna call his family. So he calls Annie and lets her know, so she is aware of it. And then when John goes to re-enter the atmosphere, the last radio signal he says, not knowing any of these problems, is everything is a-okay, but my back's getting a little hot. Which is not what you want to hear. Luckily, he splashes down. Everything is okay. When they do an internal investigation, it was the indicator light that had a problem, not the spaceship. But it does infuriate John a little bit of how they handled it. And so nowadays, you know, they're going to inform people when their lives are in danger, or at least inform their family. But again, this was our first time doing any of this. they probably didn't really have a huge plan for if it went wrong, and so they were just learning as they went. And of course, it didn't scare John nearly enough, since he wanted to go straight back up into space afterwards. And it did rattle his family a little bit, but Annie's support never wavered. His daughter, though, when he goes back into space in '98, he finishes his time as senator, goes back up. She's interviewed by a local news station. She says, and I quote, "I wish he would slow down and stay put." So she might get a little tired of it a little later on. But nowadays she comes and she helps us celebrate anytime we have a big milestone here, and is a big supporter, of course, of what our dad did. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
And I notice a WHIZ camera in the corner, but I
Yes.
understand John's flight didn't just bring WHIZ to town, it kind of created this whole media circus.
Yes, and I do not envy the people that were in charge of making sure everything went okay, because our little teeny tiny town has about 2,000 people. It did back then too, having quite literally like 300, 400, 500 times the people in town. When he came back through, he had a parade here, he had one in DC, he had the first ticker tape parade in New York City. When he came back, it was so jam-packed. My grandfather has this fun story of the women and children being very chivalrous. They were allowed to be on the front line of the street and stand on the sidewalk and see John and Annie come in, but he and his brother had to climb the trees to be able to get a view as a high schooler of him coming into town, because they were taking up the entirety of the street. And John's parents, they end up dealing with like a ton of reporters. The house used to sit on Route 83, and they just like took up basically the entire opposite side of Route 83 from the house. And of course would come knocking on the door all the time. So it wasn't the most pleasant experience, but none of them ever complained. They of course thought what John did was wonderful, as did our community, thus the museum being here and being so full of items from our community. But he is just a really big deal at the time.
I see up on the wall there that you can kind of see the journey he took while orbiting the Earth. Tell us a little about that.
So I love this poster. It is a great way to visualize what he actually did. He went around the Earth 3 times in 4 hours, and this poster says 55 minutes. I will say, if you're a stickler, if you say about 5 hours, you're going to be pretty good in the ballpark. A lot of people will come up with different minutes because they'll judge it a little differently. They'll measure from takeoff to touchdown, or the same place in space each time, or the same place in regards to where it lines up on the Earth, because the Earth is rotating while he's doing it. As long as you say like about 5 hours, you're probably okay. There are dark portions, so that's when it would have been nighttime versus the day. And not like today, where you can see all of the cities and things at nighttime. When he was orbiting, even though we had electricity, it was nowhere near the level we have, so we really couldn't see much if it was nighttime. One of my favorite things about this poster is it has a few indicators of events that happened as he orbits. So as you go around, you might notice Port Australia is just in the dark every single time. And the very end there's a little white dot over Perth, Australia. Because when they figure out that they're just gonna be in the shadow the whole time, they send out an emergency broadcast, and they tell everyone in Perth, Australia to turn on all their lights, open their doors and windows, and it's the only city John is able to see from space. So they get called the City of Lights, and he even thanks them over the radio, so they get to actually hear him thank them.
That's so cool.
Yep. There's also a few like little dashes around his capsule a little bit before that. Those are to indicate the fireflies that John saw in outer space. Of course, he wasn't seeing actual fireflies by any means. And at the time when he reports it, the thought process was like maybe the Soviets left something behind that's reacting weird, or something's reacting with the metal on the capsule. But the true answer was we really didn't know what was going on. But John's actually able to take a picture of them. He takes a camera and he's able to take a picture. And still till today, we're not actually sure. People still encounter it. Oftentimes people on the International Space Station will mention things like that. But it's never been a big enough issue to be of note for study. And so it's just something that happens. We're pretty sure they're not actual fireflies that made it all the way up there, but we're still wondering what they were.
When we come back, we'll take a look at the ticker tape parade held in John Glenn's honor and look at his celebrity status after his flight. All that and more on Museums of Muskingum. Welcome back to Museums of Muskingum. I'm in New Concord at the John and Annie Glenn Museum being shown around by Hope Neal. Without further ado, let's get back to the tour. Of course, we got all of the things that are celebrating, him coming back down safe and sound. A good example is this ticker tape parade over here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so he is the first ticker tape parade in New York City. Like I said, he basically, I always like to joke, he had a parade from Cape Canaveral all the way back up home. But it is also the biggest, so it has multiple tons of confetti and things that need to be picked up afterwards. And it's a really big deal. I mean, he's riding with multiple heads of state, presidents. Lyndon B. Johnson, I know, is a part of one. And so he gets to do all these celebrations. And John, love him dearly. His secretaries had a love-hate relationship with him because he wanted to stop and talk to anyone that wanted to stop and talk to him. And so I cannot even imagine the people that were in charge of making sure that he stayed on route and on time and doing what he was meant to do during all of this, because when he's a senator, it's really, really difficult. So I can't imagine at the peak of his popularity what that would have been like.
Talk to the celebrity status of it. I mean, there's obviously the ticker tape parade. I see Life magazines with his face on it. All this commemorative stuff. What was that like for him? Did he appreciate it? Did he not appreciate it?
He is always grateful, is the way I'll put it. But he doesn't let it get to him. He doesn't really get a big head. I think oftentimes, especially when he decides he's going to enter into politics, he sees power as an opportunity to help people. So he probably saw this fame as a chance to advocate, as a chance to make people's lives better. And so he was grateful for it, but I'm sure it was a little overwhelming, to say the least, coming from our teeny tiny little town. Life magazine had the exclusive rights to all of the Mercury 7, so any photos that you see from the time that are well done professional magazine photos are going to be Life magazine, and almost all of those are now free on, I think, Google Books, so they're open to the public if you ever want to go snooping and find them. The one over there, we have one sitting open that is of Annie and his daughter Lynn during that re-entry section where if something was wrong with the heat shield, it was going to go wrong. So they look very distraught. That's why, is because that is being taken. And you did mention the video camera before. All the other Mercury 7 astronaut wives had video cameras in their homes as everything was going on. Annie, because of her stutter, really made it clear to everybody that she did not want video cameras in her home. And then, of course, the cameras take a photo of that really vulnerable moment of her and her daughter, and she just becomes a little bit more selective. I think she sees it as like a learning opportunity of moving forward, we'll be a little more in control of what we let into our house and what we do not.
And then obviously he becomes this major celebrity, giant ticker tape parades. He becomes a U.S. senator. He does all of these things. But New Concord and Muskingum College, later university, seem to be foundational to who he is and what he wants to do. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So a quote growing up here that we always hear is, if you start here, you can go anywhere. And John really did believe that. I think a big portion of his childhood going through the Great Depression and World War II was seeing the community around him come together and support those who needed it and support him when he goes through all of this. I mean, we are his biggest cheerleaders by far. And so he really believes that support is a crucial part of where he was able to start and make his life go. And then in his later years, so after the Discovery mission, he starts the School of Public Affairs at OSU. He also comes back and is on the board for Muskingum University. So he starts to really lay the foundations for education because he wants to give others the same opportunities he got to be able to be educated and to start here and go anywhere they might like.
Fantastic. Ready for the next room?
Sounds great.
All right. Here's a quick trivia question for you. What year was John Glenn born? You'll find out the answer when we come back on Museums of Muskingum. So we're standing in the childhood bedroom of John Glenn. Now, everything we've looked at so far is on the highest floor. Just below us, though, there's kind of a unique aspect of this museum that we're not going to go into just to not give everything away. But can you tell us a little bit about what goes on downstairs?
Yeah, so downstairs is what we like to call living history. And so it is the main floor of the house. All the rooms that you're thinking of, the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, those are all down there. And we set them up to be different time periods. So this year it is 1962. If you come back next year, we actually switch it to 1937. We talk about the Great Depression. And then 2 years after that, we go to 1944 and talk about World War II. So that is actually the way we got John's approval of this whole thing. You were talking about his interaction with fame. John did not want a museum all about him. And he had a few stipulations. One was that we would be educational. And so that is the main portion that is educational for children to go through and see all these different time periods that he lived through. And then also it had to be the John and Annie Glenn Museum. He would absolutely not have it be the John Glenn Museum. So this is the only room upstairs that is set up to be time period. We don't switch this room out. It's set up to be as if he's about 10 years old. And it is where his room would have been from the ages of 6 until 20 when he left for the military.
And I understand that an added element to when you're touring the downstairs area, different tour guide who's a little more method. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so we have historical actors. So if you come, they'll knock on the door and it'll be maybe his mom answering the door, his sister, a renter, or even himself or his son. So it really behooves you to come back and see all the different people that portray different things. If I'm downstairs, I'm playing his little sister. So we have a really fun time, and the same thing up here too. If you come back and you get a different tour guide, we only have so long to talk to you before you get tired and want to go sit down. So you might hear different stories depending on who you get. So there is a radio behind you there. And that was the very first gift John ever gave Annie. He got it as a birthday present. It was this fun portable radio, was very excited to have it. And then it was Annie's freshman year of college at Muskingum, and she gets ill and she is quarantined to her bedroom. And John, for once in his life, he actually admits that he broke a rule. He wasn't allowed to see her. She was supposed to just be there quarantined, reading books, and he thought honestly she would be very bored. So what he did is he took that, he snuck out the window back here onto the roof of the front porch, down it and up the road to her bedroom window where he snuck it into her window for her.
It's amazing.
Yeah, when they toured afterwards, he came into the room and the very first thing he said was like, "Oh, I guess I'm not getting that back."
One of the few things he was like, I could take that home, right?
It still works.
Really?
As far as I have been told, the last time that we had to run it, we did, and it worked perfectly fine.
Probably one of those things that scares you every time you go to plug it in.
Yes.
Alrighty, ready for the next room?
Yes.
All right.
Here's a quick question for you. The Annie Glenn Award honors which individuals? We'll find out more after the break here on Museums of Muskingum.
So we're standing here in the Annie Gallery, and I know John was very passionate about making sure that his name was not going on things without her name going on there as well. It was a partnership, and I think this room reflects that. What are some of the highlights that stand out to you in this gallery?
Yeah, so this is my favorite gallery by far, mostly because it was one of the first things that I did here, but I do still adore that we have a space dedicated to Annie. The one thing I always want to clarify is that she never lived in the house. If she came back home, she would stay with her parents, so this would have just been another renter's room, but of course we wanted, again, to dedicate a space to her. And this has a few of my favorite things, like her wedding suit. She did not have a wedding dress. She was very 1940s. When they got married, it was the middle of the war. There was rations in place, so they decided they didn't want a big shindig. So what they did is they just got married in her church at College Drive, Presbyterian, and then they had a small ceremony in her parents' garden. There's not very many photos, and the piece of paper up above the suit is her diary entry from the day, where she writes about how she's so glad that the fake pearls and the real pearls don't look different in her lace, that they dyed it a light pink and it matched the feather in her hair. The only thing she says about John is the very last line. She says, "John looks very good in his blues." And of course we do have his suit. He would have just been coming back from boot camp. Now John and Annie, part of the reason they could go without having a big shindig is they only ever dated each other. They said they could never remember their first kiss, their first date, their first time saying I love you. When people paired off, they just paired off together, and that's how they were for the rest of their lives. And they met as toddlers in a playpen because their parents had a card club that met once a month. So they were always in each other's life. So it was no big deal to anyone in town that they were getting married by far. They did have a different expectation of their life when they got married. They were thinking before that John would be the plumber and she would be the music teacher, but of course he goes away and enters the military, and so their life shifts just a little bit around this time too.
So I can see the organ in the corner, and that kind of speaks to her musical background that we've talked about before. Was it primarily the organ and piano that she could play, or?
Yes, so the organ is her favorite instrument. John said he knew when she was extremely upset because her stutter would get worse and she would play the organ, she would speak through it. Finlandia, the piece on there, is her senior recital piece. I always make the joke that if you know anything about music, that thing is terrifying. But her senior recital is a really interesting story. It falls on Sunday, December 7th. So if you know your history, that is Pearl Harbor Day. And John, he takes his dad's car to go to it, and he pulls into a park and hears a news alert come on and decides he's going to be late because he wants to stay in the car and hear the news alert. So he hears the news of Pearl Harbor, walks into Brown Chapel in this room full of hundreds of people that have no clue because they were all there on time, sits through her recital, watches everyone leave, get in their car, turn on the radio, and hear the news. So he gets like a third person experience of this big historical event. And the first thing he does is he goes to Annie. And he says, we have to have a talk because, like I said, their life plan was not involving the military. And 20-year-old John Glenn has the wherewithal to go to Annie and say, you know, I want you to be happy. And if being a military spouse is not a life that is going to make you happy, then I want you to be happy with or without me. And of course she doesn't blink an eye. She supports him all the way through, but especially considering her stutter and how difficult that would have and did make them moving around so much and the aspects of military life for her, the fact that 20-year-old John Glenn respected and cared about her enough to be able to give her a way out and was thinking so much about her is really indicative about the way that they live their life. Anytime John's asked what his goal in life is, and you would think he'd say president or to go to outer space again or all these wonderful things, it's always just to make Annie happy.
That's absolutely beautiful. And you've mentioned a couple of times the stutter Annie had, and that was something that she seemed to have overcome a great deal, to the point where there's an award in her honor kind of based on that struggle. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when she is in her 70s, she goes and she attends Hollins College of Communication and Research in Roanoke, Virginia, and she undergoes a experimental treatment where basically instead of treating it like a physical misconnection, what they did is they cut her off from the world for about 2 weeks. They had her go through and identify all the times that her stutter was the worst. So different triggers, sort of is the term we would have used nowadays. Different words that she could then find synonyms for that she would replace in her speech. And one of the very first things she does when she's allowed to contact people is she calls John. And throughout all of their time in the military, all of their time together, she was never able to speak on the phone to him. He would call and talk to the kids would translate for her, he would call and talk at her, but she was never able to talk back. That was one of the main things that her stutter made difficult for her. And so when she's able to call him and she says hello, she just said she heard sobbing on the other end of the phone because she knew how hard it had been for her. And so by the time she leaves, she's considered a cured case. I hate the wording cured because it makes it sound like she took a pill and never thought about it. And the reality is she thought about it every single time that she spoke. But she's considered such a wonderful advocate after that the college makes the Annie Award. And to get it, you have to have some type of communication disorder. It does not need to be stuttering, and you have to continue to be in the public eye. So there's some names on there that you might recognize, like James Earl Jones, Julie Andrews, the Scatman's on there, and then Annie is also given the award.
Well, Hope, thank you so much for showing us around. I do have a few things that I want to touch on before we hit the road. So one thing here is there's this neat passport here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we are one of over 50 sites, historical sites, that Ohio History Connection, or OHC, run in the state. And if you get a membership, you can have free entry to all those sites. But anyone who comes in can pick up one of these passports. It has all those 50 sites. Each site has a question underneath that you can find an answer to in the museum or at the site. And then we all have different little stamps that we get to stamp it saying that you completed it. It also has a really terrific map in the back that I always recommend for anyone planning any type of trip, because it tells you if it has tours, how long the tours are, the hours, the bathrooms, accessibility, basically any information you need to be planning. It's all contained right inside that little passport.
Fantastic. I have one at home. I just need to actually start going to more.
You should have brought it.
I picked it up here, so it's already got that stamp.
Oh, good.
And then I understand that there's essentially a movie theater right over here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that wasn't original to the house. Neither was the stairwell or the elevator. But we moved it. We wanted to make sure it was accessible and a usable space. So we do have a about 20-minute movie that we typically start people off with because oftentimes people don't have a good understanding of John, and we want them to have a little bit of an introduction before we send them upstairs. It was a collaborative project with Muskingum University, and so it's always really nice to have students involved in anything. Along with multiple posters in there are Muskingum University students' creations as well, so we always have a good time working with them.
Fantastic. And then for people who are interested in coming out and experiencing this amazing museum for themselves, I understand this is kind of a seasonal schedule you guys operate on.
Yes, so we are only open 6 months out of the year. So we are open May through October. We do open for a lot of the general area events. So like the Christmas parade, we always have free tours. Community Day, we always have free tours. This year we're putting on an America 250 celebration, the same week Environments Festival would have been. So we'll also have free tours that day too. But we are open Wednesday through Saturday 10 to 4 and Sunday 1 to 4. I like to tell people come at least at 3 o'clock because our tours at the least can take an hour and at the most could take multiple depending on how interested you are in history. So I always like to have people sort of budget their time accordingly.
So obviously you mentioned a lot of the free tour opportunities with holiday parades and things like that, but you host a lot of your own events here at the museum too. Tell us about some of the annual events that the community sees.
Yeah, absolutely. So we host an Amy Glen Tea every spring to celebrate Annie, and we bring in a speaker that has something to do with her life. And we also always do a space days. We have 2 separate days. It's a kids camp to learn about something science-y connected to John Glenn. It's hosted in July because it's around when his birthday was.
Well, Hope, thank you so much again for showing us around. We'll hope to see you at the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the lives of John and Annie Glenn at the John and Annie Glenn Museum in New Concord. Join us next time as we travel down the road to Norwalk for the National Road and Zane Grey Museum. I'm JW Dennison, and I'll see you then right here on Museums of Muskingum.